Welcome to This Podcast is Making Me Thirsty, the number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This is Two Up and Two Down. Here's our producer, Chris, to start us off.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Up and Two Down. Today we got the great season 4 episode, The Contest. So today, let's start with Chris. What do you got for your first of the two ups?
An absolutely brilliant episode penned by Larry David. It's difficult. There's so many ups, it's hard to choose. But I'm going to go with one. I really enjoyed this one. Elaine and Jerry and George back at the coffee shop talking about meeting JFK Jr. I mean, it's just quintessential Elaine, just flustered and just telling the story. It was incredible. They had the workout. He said, quite a workout. And she goes, yeah. And then, Jerry chimes in with, good one. Yeah. And just the whole, getting into the cab with JFK and got dropped off at Jerry's place, and just how you could just tell how excited she was meeting someone like JFK. It was incredible acting. And I think Elaine really just was spot on in this scene. So her description of meeting John F. Kennedy Jr. for the first time, splitting the cab, going uptown, totally flustered, but still remaining queen of the castle. Elaine is my number one thumbs up so far for the contest.
All right, very good. And for our younger viewers, meeting John F. Kennedy Jr. back in the 90s, that would have been a big deal. So, all right, Tony, what do you got for your first up?
Yeah, I gotta say he took one of mine on the list. Obviously, we have a lot on the list, which is good. I mean, I agree. I think it might be one of Elaine's best episodes of all time. She's amazing in this episode. Every single scene, she's amazing, especially that coffee shop scene. So yeah, I can't disagree. But obviously, I'm not going to use it. We got enough here that we don't have to repeat. So. I mean, we can't do this. We cannot do this and not call this one out. So I might as well start with it. Obviously, Estelle Costanza's first scene, we get to see her for the first time. But this is where it comes into play with the whole watching it live versus watching reruns, right? Like, you might just see this episode one day on TV and not realize what it was like watching it the first time. And watching it the first time with Estelle as her first time as she ever appears on the show. I mean, this is what you're talking mind-blowing, like top-level television. One of the best episodes of all time, obviously. You got Estelle, nothing better to do at 3:00 in the afternoon. I mean, how is that not the best line you've ever heard in your life? You could sell out Madison Square Garden, and they're arguing about going to see a therapist. I mean, the whole thing. Estelle Costanza's first appearance is my thumbs up, my first thumbs up.
Yeah, that's a good one. I definitely had that jotted down. George's mom just berating him while she's in the hospital about everything that he's done. Very good. Chris, what do you got for your second up?
Yeah, this episode is just action-packed. I'm sure we have a lot, and sometimes the obvious ones we could touch on. But I love the George and Jerry, just their conversations in these early seasons. There's nothing better, right? And when George comes back to Jerry's apartment, he talks about his mother, the whole sponge bath thing. And just a little thing he mentions, if everyone who did that had to see a psychiatrist, and he just ended it. Yeah. And Jerry chimes in and goes, yeah. Like, it was just, I don't know, it gets me every time. The delivery, the writing, that quick little scene, just love it. And it's a small piece of just like I said, one of the best written shows of all time, but it's those little pieces that make it so. So I'm going with that. George coming back, if everyone who did that had to see a psychiatrist, and Jerry's response is my second thumbs up.
All right, very good. Tony, what do you got for your second up?
Yeah, and on that note, I'll kind of throw one right back, another maybe not obvious one. But another Jerry. Jerry, obviously, we're going to talk about this a lot. I mean, I just called it Elaine's best episode. It's a great Jerry episode as well. We got the old Jerry watching Tiny Toons while Kramer's looking at a naked lady across the street. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. And Kramer's singing of the naked lady across the street, and Jerry singing Wheels on the Bus. Yeah, I'm watching Tiny Toons here. Cartoons. He's probably trying to get anything out of his head he can think of to not break on this contest. He's watching cartoons while Kramer's looking at a naked. It's unbelievable, Jerry, just trying to be, by the book and just watching his little Tiny Toon show and the whole Wheels on the Bus. That's my second thumbs up.
All right, great. Yeah, this was just such an incredible episode. We could go on and on and on with so many ups. So what I'm more interested in hearing is the downs, because I struggled here. So Chris, what do you got for your first down?
Yeah, for sure. Downs in the contest, clearly difficult. It's kind of poking small holes in just a great episode. But I'm going to go with when they're all at the window and they're having the nudist colony discussion. Kind of missed for me a little bit. I think they could have just gone without it. I think the actual visual of them staring at the window could have been more impactful. A little bit of overwriting there in my mind. So I'm going to go with the nudist colony discussion at Jerry's window.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely see that. So Tony, over to you. What do you got for your first down?
Yeah, I got to say, I actually wrote down one big nudorama as a possible down. That whole scene, I was kind of thinking of it, and that's how I remembered it. But I do agree that's a little bit of a miss, if you want to call it a miss. Here's my miss, though, and this has always bothered me since the first time I saw this episode. It's one of those things. Again, Jerry, if you ask Jerry Seinfeld, he'll say, "Well, it's funny. Who cares, right? He suspend your disbelief and all that kind of stuff." But if I'm going to nitpick and poke a hole, how does Kramer see the woman across the street naked when his apartment is across from Jerry's in the hallway? He doesn't have a window to that side of the building. How does he even know that she's there? He comes running in and looks across Jerry's other window and says the lady naked across the street in an apartment building over there. Unless Kramer was walking outside, which could be, he was walking outside, looked up, saw her, then came inside. So I'm poking a hole in my own thing here. But I'm still going to use it as a down because you shouldn't have to think that much when you want to just laugh, right? So I always go back to thinking about that, like how's Kramer seeing the lady? We got to do down. So that's my down is the old, how's Kramer catching a glimpse of that woman from his own apartment? I don't get it. That's my down.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, maybe Newman tipped them off or something. But okay, I can see that. Again, these downs are going to be, like you said, very nitpicky. So, Chris, we'll go back over to you for your second down.
Yeah, I was thinking Newman might have told them. But anyway, my second down for the contest, and again, I'm nitpicking here, but it's the introduction of the cousin, Shelley. Was that necessary? Probably not. We never heard from her again. So for me, it was a decent conversation. But I don't, and he talked about the pilot and NBC, and I think they could have used the doctor. The cousin Shelley just didn't make sense. We never heard from her again. So that's my other down. It's a small down, but it's a down.
Yeah, like you said, it's just a throwaway character. Who knows? It's just, she just really didn't click or gel with the rest of the episode. All right. So Tony, what do you got for your second down?
Yeah, I almost wrote down Shelley. I was going back and forth with it. I talked myself out of it because I was just like, you know what? It's Estelle's first episode. It's a movie that bring family in because she's in the hospital. I don't know, but I kind of agree that it's a peripheral down. I didn't write it down. I'm not going to use it, obviously, but it's hard to disagree if you were coming up with downs. My second down is really a nitpick throwaway, similar to O'Hara's Nudorama kind of scene. I think it's a little different though, because I believe it's the next scene when Elaine comes over and she's talking and they're not paying attention to her. And she's like, I'm going to Mars. I'm taking a trip to Mars. And they're just like, whatever. Again, they've overplayed the naked lady a little bit there. I think, it kind of be trying to be funny. They're not paying attention to Elaine and she's coming up with this Mars stuff. If you're going to do it down, that's where I'm going, nitpicking. But the Elaine going to Mars kind of distraction is my thumbs down.
Well, yeah. I mean, come on. How much are you going to see without binoculars, right? So they don't need to invest too much time looking at her out the window. But my down is that Frank was in Chicago. It would have been great if Frank walked in while George was there, and the two of them just were, and George was in between them yelling at him.
Frank hadn't been. There was no Frank at this point either. I mean,
Right.
Estelle came in first, so they just didn't even have a Frank.
All right. So thank you guys for your 2 downs. So let's wrap this up with grades for the contest. Chris, what's your final grade here?
This is an ultimate Seinfeld episode. From Jumpstart, the opening scene, Glamour magazine, Kramer talking about not shaving every day, to things we've already mentioned, right? George, I'm hungry. I mean, it's nonstop action in 22 minutes on a subject that who would have thought that was on network television, right?
Yes.
Unbelievable. I mean, George and Jerry snipping at each other about instant coffee. I get my coffee on the outside. I mean, we can go on and on. The contest is an A+. I mean, Peter Melman, he mentioned this. He wrote, The Virgin the week before, and it got rave reviews. And he walked in the writing room and saw this script, and he was essentially crushed because of how good it was compared to what he just wrote. So A+ for the contest, no doubt.
All right. Yeah. Tony, what's your final grade here?
Yeah, I mean, again, not only is it one of the greatest Seinfeld episodes, it's up there with the greatest television of all time. We're talking 22 minutes, 21 and a half is ups, right? We kind of are nitpicking on downs, but you're talking about this is an incredible, groundbreaking episode. I'm out. We didn't even talk about I'm out. I
was going to end with that. I'm out.
You know what I love? I love George's dinosaur sheets. I mean, I'm sure we've all looked at those a few times and thought those are just amazing. I mean, everything about Kramer, the whole thing, the honor system, the pinkies, I zipped up. Why George? This is go on and on like we've been saying. The bottom line is, again, it's an A+ episode. If you're ever going to see an A+ episode, this is it. There's no doubt about it. Funny, the instant coffee line. I did write that down. I guess he listened to Bookman and got instant coffee in the apartment. I always loved that somehow he got the instant coffee. They're arguing about the socks, just everything, not sleeping, and then everyone gets to sleep at the end. On and on. A+ the contest.
I agree. Definitely A+. This was just a classic episode. Solid writing, beautifully, performed by the main four. So, got to agree there. A+. So, thank you guys. This was a fun episode to do. So, hope everybody comes back and sees us for the next episode. Thank you.